Hey guys, QuinntonTV here, and welcome to a brand new video, where today we are here with the first of my electoral videos. So basically, as I said in my last video, this is just going to be an overview of each presidential candidate on their history and their policies. Today we're going to be taking a look at Joe Biden. So this video is going to be exclusively on Joe Biden, so make sure you tune in a few days to check out my Donald Trump video. It should be dropping within 2 days, I want to say. Obviously I have to do the research for it relatively soon, probably the second this video really gets uploaded, and I can just like chill out, delete all the files off here, and then start work on the Trump video, because then I'll have, a few days to work on it. So, other than that, today we are going to be taking a look at Joe Biden. If you don't know who Joe Biden is the Democratic candidate for this year's election, and he was also the vice president under Obama from, I think 2009 to 2017. So, he was also, before that, the senator for Delaware, which is apparently a state in America, from 1973 to 2009. He's the fourth most senior senator and has been re-elected 6 times, which is quite impressive. So I think I should make this clear. At the moment, I don't prefer any candidate over the other. I'm trying to keep an open mind with this series. I'm going to obviously try and make a judgment by the end of the series, but at the moment, I would say that both candidates are equal in the fact I despise them both. So we're going to be trying to refrain from the classic insults like Joe being a pedophile and Trump being, a racist, bigoted, homophobic, transphobic, fucking gender normative, or whatever the fuck they call it nowadays. But yeah, I'm going to try and refrain from all those insults, really. Obviously there's going to be a lot in there, but I'm trying to go with more creative ones. Because, those ones have been done to death. They're not exactly that funny anymore. So, yeah. Without further ado, however, we're going to stop talking a bunch of bullshit, and we're going to get straight in to Joe Biden. Not in that way, you weird cunts. Get your mind out the gutter. Okay, I'm a little bit excited right now because I've never had an excuse to use the American National Anthem in a video, and now I do, and I always have wanted to use it at some point. It's literally been sitting on my PC gathering dust, and it was either this one or the ear rape version, which I'm definitely not using, considering this is a serious channel, okay? But yeah, as I mentioned before, Joe Biden has been the vice president of America before. He was VP under the Obama administration, and he was also senator for Delaware from 1973 to 2009. He's been re-elected 6 times. He has a law degree from... Oh my god, I can't read this word. What is it? Syracuse? Syria University in 1968. He was elected a Newcastle County Councillor in 1970 and became the 6th youngest senator in American history. So the guy's had quite a life. Being re-elected 6 times to the US Senate is no easy feat. It's very hard to get re-elected. A lot of people, especially if you don't, adhere to the demands of the constituents, for example. Wait, do they call them constituents in America? Pretty sure they do. If you don't adhere to the demands of the constituents, they can easily vote you out due to the American system having a Senate and House of Representatives election every 2 years, rather than in the UK, we have one every 5. So they definitely have more of an opportunity to hold these senators to account because they're getting re-elected every 2 years. But Joe Biden's had a very interesting past, but now we're going to take a look at some of the man's, more questionable stuff. There's a lot of controversial shit here, but then there's also some very good things that the man's done, so we're going to be taking a look at those now. So I wanted to put this one first because it's not as well known, but it's quite controversial. So, in the mid-1970s, Biden was one of the Senate's leading opponents of race integration busing. So, if you don't know what this is, it's basically, back after the Brown versus the Board of Education Supreme Court case, they basically said that it's unconstitutional for racial segregation in public schools. So, in an attempt to diversify schools, they basically put black and white students on the same bus, and Joe Biden actually voted against this and said that they needed to be segregated. He said that it was an asinine policy, quote unquote, and he responded by saying, this was actually when, I think it was Kamala Harris, is that his VP? It was his VP that said, or if he gets elected, it will be his VP. She asked him about this whole busing issue, and basically said, I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed. So I'm not going to give too much of my opinion on this. Obviously, that's for you guys to decide on your own. I think that's what's really important. I display the facts here in this video, and then you guys can go off and make your own decision. But this just seems like, a bit of jargon coming from politicians. Like, they always say stupid shit like this when they get asked, like, oh, remember when you said this? They always say, I didn't say this. I was opposed to something else. It was because the Department of Education ordered it, not because I actually opposed it, which, he may be telling the truth. I'm not here to say that the man's not telling the truth. However, I highly doubt that this was his true intentions. Maybe that's just because I'm a libertarian, don't trust politicians whatsoever. Who fucking knows? I'm not going to say any more about it, however, and we're going to move straight on to the next point. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the 1988 Democratic presidential nomination. So Biden formally had declared his candidacy for the 1988 Democratic presidential nomination on June the 9th, 1987. He was considered a very strong candidate because of his moderate image. However, by September, Biden had actually been accused of plagiarizing a speech by the Labour Party leader, Neil Kinnock. Kinnock's speech had included the following lines. Why am I the first Kinnock in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university? He then points to his wife. Why is Glenys the first woman in her 1,000 generations to be able to get to university? Was it because our predecessors were thick? Now, Biden's speech was actually quite similar. I read through it initially and I was like, okay, it's not that similar. But now, looking at it, it does seem very similar. Biden's speech was, I started thinking as I was coming over here, why is it that Joe Biden is the first in his family ever to go to university? Then pointing to his wife in the audience, why is it that my wife, who is sitting out there in the audience was the first in her family to ever go to college? Is it because our mothers and fathers were not bright? Is it because I'm the first Biden in 1,000 generations to get to college and a graduate degree that I was smarter than the rest? So obviously the two speeches do sound very similar. They're about a similar thing, and they use the same sort of actions, I guess. They both pointed to the wives in the audience. They go, why is it my wife is the first woman in 1,000 generations to go to university? And then the same for Joe, obviously, which, yeah, I can kind of see why this has been, the argument that this was plagiarized has been brought up, because it does sound extremely similar. If you heard each speech side by side, you'd be like, okay, they're very similar. His defense for this, by the way, was that politicians often borrow from one another without giving credit. So, basically, yeah, he plagiarized this one. Whether that's as big as a deal as they were suggesting at the time, it's probably not. It's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. I wouldn't just actively not vote for someone just because they copied a speech. I think that's a bit excessive. Plagiarism, even if they deny it especially, is a big thing in politics, apparently. So, the next thing I wanted to talk about, this is a much more positive thing that Joe Biden has done. He has been a part of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee from 1997 as a minority member. So basically, the Democrats weren't in power, so a minority member is from the minority party, and then from June 2001 to 2003, and 2007 to 2009, which he actually chaired. His positions were generally liberal internationalist. He collaborated effectively with Republicans and sometimes went against elements of his own party in order to act effectively. So I actually saw on Joe Biden's website something about that he will try and be a president for everyone, regardless of where they were, if they're a Democrat or a Republican. Which, this could actually be evidence to back that up, that he will, go with his word and try and be a president for everyone. He won't just try and satisfy his core fan base, and he'll try and make everybody happy, which is obviously the job of the president. He'd also voted against authorization of the Gulf War in 1991. He wrote an amendment in 1992 to compel the Bush administration to arm the Bosnians in the Bosnian War, but this was deferred in 1994 to a somewhat softer stance, which the Clinton administration had preferred. But a year later, the US government would sign on to a much stronger measure, which would lead to a successful NATO peacekeeping effort, which Biden actually believes is one of his best accomplishments as a senator. Biden also strongly advocated for increased Amtrak funding, which I'm pretty sure is like a nationalized company that basically just works on rails in America, and they have like thousands and thousands of miles of railway just across the country, which Biden actually advocated thoroughly for increased spending, which is always good, and it kind of matches up with the 2020 promise to, invest in US infrastructure, which we'll just have to see how this all plays out. I'm actually very intrigued to see if Biden would actually, invest how much he would actually invest in US infrastructure, because, investing in infrastructure is always a good thing. Also, Biden held trade agreements with Russia when it had stopped importing US chickens. So basically, Russia basically said, no, we're not importing your chickens anymore. And the Sussex County, which is a region of Delaware, which, if you remember back to the start of the video, Biden was the senator for Delaware, and it is the nation's top chicken-producing area. And Russia basically just said, nope, we're not importing your chickens anymore. And Biden came in to, back up his constituents and try and open up trade negotiations again, which, is a really good thing to help maintain his own popularity, and also for his constituents to maintain their jobs and their income. So that's just about it for the history right there. We're going to be moving on now to the key policies for the presidential run. What I've decided to do here is divide it up into immigration, COVID-19, because obviously that is a very important issue right now, and each, presidential candidate needs to have their own way of sorting out COVID-19. We've got Trump's way, which he's been doing now, and Biden's new way, which he's proposed in his manifesto, I guess you could call it. Then you have climate change, firearm reform, healthcare, foreign policy, and that's it. So hopefully we'll be getting into some very interesting information, and you guys can help form a valid opinion about Biden's policy. So, first in this section, I think it makes only, logical sense that we talk about a hotbed issue, which is immigration. Now, this was, in 2016, Trump's major policy, talking about immigration, talking about curbing illegal immigration, immigration, and then, kind of slowing down and making it a lot harder for legal immigrants to get into the US. So, we're going to talk about Biden's immigration policy. So, it's estimated that nearly half of undocumented illegals living in the US have overstayed a visa and not crossed the border illegally. So, basically, when you go to America, you get a visa, and when your visa runs out, you either go home or you try and renew your visa. So, Biden's saying from this statistic that half of the undocumented illegal immigrants in America at that point aren't there because they've illegally crossed the border. It's because they've been on a visa, they've been there legally, but then it's run out and they forgot to renew it, or, they just can't be asked renewing it. A Biden administration would almost certainly roll back changes made to both the legal and illegal immigration to the US during the Trump administration. Some examples of this, as I said before, are legal migration and restrict travel and visas from certain countries. So the travel ban that he tried to get put in place a few years ago from certain Middle Eastern countries, which, it was a very controversial issue. Whether it was the right call or not, I'm not here to say, but I can understand why Trump made that policy. Because those areas are definitely hotbeds for some not very nice things, basically. And a lot of terrorists do live in that region. Not saying that every person in that region is a terrorist, because we all know that's not true. A lot of people in the Middle East are just hardworking, normal people who just, want to go about with their lives. But you can't really take that risk. Well, that's Trump's mentality anyway, and I'd sort of agree, but whether a whole travel ban is necessary, I do not know. In some parts of the US, legal immigrants are even fearful to seek medical attention for fear of being deported, which isn't great, especially if they're there legally. They should have nothing to worry about, theoretically, but if there is a concern there, people need to either step in and show them with evidence that they're not going to be deported if, they legally go and seek medical attention. But yeah, dreamers and their parents... Oh, wait, by the way, if you don't know what a dreamer is, it's basically someone that has come for a better life in America. That whole American dream idea. Dreamers and their parents should have a roadmap to citizenship throughout legislative immigration reform. But in the meantime, Biden will remove the uncertainty for dreamers by reinstating the DACA program, and also would aggressively advocate for legislation to keep families together by providing a roadmap for citizenship for nearly 11 million undocumented immigrants. Now, basically, if you're undocumented, which means it's just like a nice way of saying illegal immigrant, and because the country doesn't know you're there, they're saying that there's a roadmap for undocumented illegal immigrants to, get citizenship. Now, I think that this is my own little opinion here, and feel free to disagree, but the process for getting citizenship in a country, you shouldn't just be able to, turn up and get into the country like that. You have to apply, you have to, make sure you're actually a good person, make sure you are... you're not going to come in, just scrounge off benefits and then go home, basically. You should contribute to the country you're in, which I am actually very happy about this, because a lot of immigrants that come to America legally do contribute to the system, especially a lot of Mexican immigrants. I will say this, they all come into the US, they stay there, they don't, go home or whatever after a few weeks of scrounging off their benefits. What they do is they work bloody hard. Like, I went to California last year, and they work so bloody hard. They're out there in the boiling heat all day, doing like labourer jobs, which is, it's bloody hard. I've been a labourer myself. It's really, really hard work. So those people definitely deserve to be in the US, because they're putting so much effort in, and also they're paying their taxes, they're basically being law-abiding citizens. They deserve to have citizenship. Obviously, they would have to go through the process every other human being had to if they wanted to join, be a citizen of the US, which I am completely fine with. Okay, so quickly, just before we move on, I just want to say this. If you're, interested by anything you see in these videos, they are only a summary, so make sure you guys go and check out Biden's full campaign promises over on his website. I'll leave it as a link down in the description. If you are interested by anything I've talked about in this video, make sure you go and check on that, so you can, kind of get a more well-balanced version, because otherwise, since this is just a summary, you may miss out on a policy that I've not covered on, and might just, completely be up your street, So I recommend, if you're interested by anything I said in this video, go and check that website out. And the same will apply for my Trump video, which will be going out in a few days. So without further ado, let's move on to the next topic, which is COVID-19. So, it's that time of day to talk about everyone's favourite subject that we're definitely not all sick of, and that's COVID-19. Now, Biden's COVID-19 pledge, I guess, is to ensure that all Americans have access to regular, reliable, and free testing. Also to invest in next-generation testing, including at-home tests and instant tests. Joe Biden will take responsibility rather than leave states, cities, tribes, and territories to fend for themselves. So here's an we're getting an idea of what kind of candidate Joe Biden is. So in America, you kind of have like two different types of presidents. You end up with more imperial presidents that like to, throw around the power a bit more. In America, you've got like federalism, which basically the government makes some decisions, and any power that's not granted to the government in the Constitution goes to the states. Now, there's nothing about COVID-19 in the Constitution, and also about testing for COVID-19. So this would be potentially a debate going to the Supreme Court, which is interesting considering that Trump has just had his nomination onto the Supreme Court, so it's now a 6-3 majority for conservatives. So that would be a very interesting thing to kind of lay out. But so as I said before, we're kind of getting an idea of what kind of president Joe Biden would be. He's definitely going to be more of a federal government power kind of guy. He's going to take action into his own hands quite a lot. Power's not going to go to the states as much, and a lot of power is going to end up in the hands of Joe and the federal government. So if you're one of the people that is very states' rights in America, this isn't going to be a very good thing for you. However, I don't think any of the presidents are very full states' rights. They both kind of seem like very central government power sort of thing. Joe would also focus on producing some of the critical supplies in the United States, so basically nothing's being made in like China or Turkey, like a lot of the face masks over here in the UK, where they're going to be made in America so they can be reliant on themselves, which is a good thing. Biden is going to make full use of the Defense Production Act to ramp up production of masks, face shields, and other PPE so that national supply of personal protection equipment exceeds demand and our stores and stockpiles, especially in hard-hit areas, are fully replenished. Also, Joe intends to provide a restart package that helps small businesses cover the costs of operating safely. You know what that means, higher taxes. Everyone's going to absolutely love that after Trump's tax breaks. This is basically going to be to help small businesses operate safely and effectively, like plexiglass and other PPE. The plan is to invest $25 billion into a vaccine manufacturing and distribution plan that will guarantee it gets to every American cost-free. Now, we don't know what's going to happen here. Obviously, that's going to come with taxpayers' money, which, that's expected. But it depends whether actually people will take it. Obviously, they don't have to. However, I do think that most people will end up getting it once it's been declared safe. A lot of people, they have their concerns about vaccines, which in some places it's, justified. Like in the 60s, there was loads of medicine that used to really have severe birth defects on kids. But most vaccines nowadays are safe and they don't cause autism, believe it or not. The only people that really have autism are the people that actually say that, because honest to God, that is the stupidest argument I have ever seen, even though it's been scientifically proven that it's not true. But it's estimated that if 95% of Americans wear masks between now and December, I have no clue when now refers to. It could mean like September, or it could mean like now as in October 28th, as you see in this. So we don't know. However, Joe Biden believes, and a lot of the researchers behind all of this believe, that they could save 70,000 lives, which I don't know how the hell they measured that, but oh well. Joe has called on every American to wear a mask when they are around people outside their household. Every governor to make them mandatory in their state, however. Which, that may end well. It might not, because there's a lot of people that really don't like wearing masks. Obviously, I'm exempt from wearing a mask, as a lot of people know I'm asthmatic. So I don't actually have to wear them in shops. The only the only place I really wear them is on buses, because I can't be arsed talking to the bus driver. They probably won't give a shit. They're all a bunch of dickheads anyway. They're just there. They hate the life, so they're going to be as big of a dick to kids as possible. But yeah, that is it for COVID-19. Hopefully you enjoyed that. We're going to try and move a bit more quickly now, and we're going to move on to climate change, which is also a hotbed issue on the Democrat Party. So now we're going to talk about probably one of the most important issues in the eyes of young people and a lot of scientists alike, and that is climate change. Now, Biden believes that the Green New Deal, which I'm pretty sure was proposed by AOC maybe like a year or two ago now, is a crucial framework for meeting the climate challenges we face. It powerfully captures two basic truths, which are at the core of his plan. Number one, the United States urgently needs to embrace greater ambition on a scale to meet the scope of the challenge. And two, our environment and economy are completely and totally connected. Biden believes that the US can turn this emergency into an opportunity to revitalize the US energy sector and boost growth economy-wide. Biden aims to make America the world's clean energy superpower, which means that they will try to create new high-paying jobs for the population by exporting our clean energy technology across the globe. On day one, Biden will sign a series of new executive orders with an unprecedented reach to put on the US on the right track for tackling the climate emergency. He will also demand that Congress enacts a legislation in the first year of his presidency that establish an enforcement mechanism that includes milestone targets no later than the end of his first term in 2025. So basically, Congress is going to put in some milestones in terms of carbon emissions. So the US will try and, cut its carbon usage, and they'll go for these milestones in 2025, so maybe that'll be net zero or whatever. I doubt it, considering America does need a little bit of coal, considering how fucking big it is, but maybe it'll be cut them by 75%. Maybe that's the target. That sounds a little bit more realistic in my opinion. But say they were going to cut the milestone for 2025, it would be the end of Biden's first term if he got elected. The carbon output of the US would have gone down by 75%. I think that's pretty simple to go on to. But the Green New Deal stuff, I have looked into it briefly. It doesn't seem like a good idea in my opinion. It just seems like it's going to destroy the economy. However, if anyone knows a bit more about it than I do, from the little things I've heard here and there, I'm probably not as, educated, I guess, to talk about it. So if somebody who actually knows what they're talking about with this sort of stuff wants to talk about it in the comment section below, I will be happy to listen. But yeah, that is pretty much it for climate change. It's a relatively simple policy. Obviously, I think the idea about exporting clean energy technologies is actually a really good idea. And this could actually be a good idea for the US because, obviously there's so many people. There's need to provide jobs, and this would provide jobs, and then it would also help encourage an economic boom because, they're exporting stuff. People have demand for this clean technology, so it may be a good thing for America. Now, the next thing is going to be extremely controversial, and that is firearm reform, which is, all the gun laws that Biden have proposed and all the Democratic Party as a whole. I don't really think there's that many Democrats in America that that oppose some form of gun laws. So we're going to jump straight into it. So let's begin this very controversial and also very interesting subject. Now, before I begin, let's just say this. We are taking statistics from a man that said this.
And perhaps, most cruelly of all, if Donald Trump has his way, the complications from COVID-19, which are well beyond what they should be. It's estimated that 200 million people have died, probably by the time I finish this talk.
All right, lads. So, quick show of hands right now. Who actually got a single word of what he just said? He was on about 200 million Americans have died, which, by the way, is 2/3 of the American population. So, Joe, I think you're full of bollocks there. Like, Jesus Christ, that statement was so wrong. What he meant to say was 200,000, and he didn't help himself by adding, by the time I finished the statement at the end. Like, he really didn't help himself, did he? It was like they've all died within that time period. He's treating it like the fucking plague or some shit. Like, Jesus Christ, mate. Chill the fuck out. So with that interesting statement, to say the least, out of the way, let's get straight into this. Joe starts off by saying almost 40,000 people die as a result of firearm injuries every year in the United States, and many more are wounded. So, just quickly, picking a small little hole in that statement, that he used 40,000 people die as a result of firearm-related injuries, not specifically murders. He also established the background check system that has kept more than 3 million firearms out of dangerous hands. Joe attempts to take on the NRA as president and will pursue constitutional, common-sense gun safety policies. It's within our grasp to end our gun violence epidemic and respect the Second Amendment. Bans on sales and the manufacture of weapons of war, quote-unquote. Today, an estimated 1 in 5 firearms are sold and transferred without a background check. Biden will enact universal background check legislation requiring a background check for all gun sales, enact legislation to prohibit all online sales of firearms, ammunition, kits and gun parts, and institute a program to buy back weapons of war currently on the streets. So basically, a buyback program would be if you had an assault rifle, for example, say you had an AK-47, the government would have you register that under the National Firearms Act, or they would buy it off you so they could get it off the streets, basically. Biden wants to introduce a buyback scheme, so they basically buy your AR-15 off you, for example. I don't know why everyone uses the example of an AR-15. Pretty sure it's just a class of weapon, not even a weapon itself. So, if they said M4s, that would make it a hell of a lot easier. But yeah, other than that, you can just register them as well if you want to keep it. So there's not going to be like fully automatic weapon bans. It's just apparently they're going to try and put bans on the manufacture of them, not the ownership of them. So if you have one already, you'd still be able to have it, but the sale of them will be illegal. So yeah, that is gun reform. I find it rather interesting, actually, that he's going for, like the buybacks and just, like, having them registered rather than an all-out ban, which is what I thought they were going to do, personally, because that's what a lot of the more extreme elements of the Democratic Party are kind of like, pushing on Joe. And I'm also interested about how assault rifles themselves aren't going to be illegal, but the manufacture of them aren't. So it's kind of like limiting the pool by, stopping manufacture for civilian use, because I doubt they would say, oh no, we're not using them in warfare either. But you know what? It's Joe Biden. He's going nuts anyway. You are literally talking about a man who made this statement.
We choose unity over division. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts.
I'm sorry, but what retard in the audience is cheering for that statement? You do realise he just said the exact same word. Truth and facts mean the exact same thing, you dumb fuck. So, apparently, my lights just went off, which isn't great, so I'm now sat in the dark with only a torch as my only source of light while I edit this video, which is, it's just great. I'm so glad my PC didn't go off, though, with the power and just, completely lose all of my saves, which would have been very, very annoying and an extra half an hour of editing. So, the first thing I want to just mention real quick is this is going to probably be a bit controversial as well, because we're going to be talking about Roe v. Wade, which was a court case in America, which basically outlined a woman's constitutional right to have an abortion. So, either way, I'm going to get screamed at no matter what I say, so I may as well just say exactly and unbiasedly as possible. So yeah, let's jump straight into this. Biden will protect the Affordable Care Act from Trump's attacks. He opposes every single effort to get rid of this historic law. So obviously that's referring to the Affordable Care Act. Biden believes that every single American should have the right to have affordable, high-quality healthcare. Since 2016, the number of uninsured Americans has increased by roughly 1.4 million, so Biden intends to repeal Trump's efforts to get rid of Obamacare. Now, 1.4 million is a lot of people, like, damn. Like, I know we take the NHS for granted in this country, but, like, if you're ill, you have to pay for your healthcare if you don't have insurance. If you don't have insurance, you're fucked, basically. And sometimes insurance is expensive, but other times it's not that expensive. In this case, though, Joe Biden plans to extend coverage to low-income Americans, as well as middle-class families getting a premium tax credit to help them pay for coverage. For example, if you had a family of 4 with an income of $110,000 per year, if they currently get insurance on the individual marketplace, because their premium will now be capped at 8.5% of their income, under the Biden plan, they will save an estimated $750 per month. Now, that's obviously a good thing. Who wouldn't want to have an extra $750 in their pocket? So, if you're really big on this policy, make sure you go down to that link in the description and check out the rest of this stuff, because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't squeeze into this video. Joe Biden believes that every American, regardless of gender, race, income, sexual orientation, or zip code, should have access to affordable, quality healthcare. Yet racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia, and other forms of discrimination permeate our healthcare system, just as in every part of society. As president, Biden will be a champion for improving access to healthcare and the health of all by expanding access to contraception and protect the constitutional right to an abortion. The public choice will cover contraception and a woman's right to choose. Now, this is interesting, because he said a woman's constitutional right to choose and a constitutional right to an abortion. Now, what's interesting about that? Obviously, Trump appointed Amy Coney Barrett. I think that's her name anyway. But she was appointed to the Supreme Court, and she's an extreme conservative. And conservatives aren't exactly a fan of the whole abortion thing. So, with this majority, it's a good chance that Trump's going to take a look at Roe v. Well, I say Trump, the Supreme Court's going to take a look at Roe v. Wade and make it so it's unconstitutional. Which, don't worry if you're a pro-choicer or whatever the fuck they're called nowadays, but don't worry, that's not going to make it so it's illegal to have an abortion. It's just going to place some restrictions on it. Also, Biden said he was going to try and codify Roe v. Wade, which was the court case that basically outlined that a woman has a constitutional right to an abortion. And basically, what this means, codification means it will be written down. Whether this is a constitutional amendment or any other act of Congress, who knows, but obviously it takes a lot of effort to get a constitutional amendment, so it's actually 2/3 of the states have to agree to that amendment, which, let's just face it, a lot of the Republican states aren't going to agree to this constitutional amendment to allow a woman to have an abortion. So it's interesting to see how this will all play out, especially if Biden becomes president and the Supreme Court has that 6-3 majority like they do now. It'll just be interesting to see like the conflict that will ensue between those two, because if Biden for some reason managed to get this constitutional amendment through, Trump's pick on the Supreme Court for overturning Roe v. Wade would actually be useless. So it's interesting to see what will happen. It says that Joe Biden's Justice Department will do anything in its power to stop the rash of state laws that so blatantly violate the constitutional right to abortion. I'm pretty sure that's referring to the heartbeat bills from like Georgia and places like that. So yeah, that is the end of healthcare right there. We've got one more policy, one more thing to talk about, which is foreign policy, and then I just want to cover on Biden's mental state, because honestly, that had to be in here somewhere. It is genuinely concerning, so it's important we touch on it. So yeah, let's jump straight in to the next part. So this is probably going to be a bit of a shorter one because there's not that much here. Biden's mainly been focusing on domestic policy, and so's Trump, actually, to be quite honest with you. It's not been a election about, foreign policy, which it usually isn't. It's mainly talking about domestic policy. The only exception I can really think of was Hillary Clinton talking about the no-fly zone in Syria, which is Yeah, most definitely foreign policy. So, Biden has voiced his support for a return to the post-World War II multilateral status quo, arguing in particular for renewing US support for NATO, continued US membership in WHO, which is the World Health Organization, for all the people that didn't know, and a recommitment to the Paris Agreement on climate change. When asked which foreign policy issue was most likely to attract bipartisanship support in 2021, IR scholars most frequently answer was China. Both the Trump administration and the Biden campaign have signaled an increasingly assertive approach to China. Biden says he will be tough on China, citing its threats to Taiwan, its unfair trade practices, and its habit of robbing American companies of technology and intellectual property. To do so, he proposes to build a united front of US allies and partners to confront China's abusive behaviours and human rights violations. Now, this is interesting. Someone's going to finally stand up to China, apparently, which I think Trump was doing a pretty good job on the whole China front anyway. He was, I think the whole TikTok ban thing with Chinese companies who are known to, spread their own information back to the Communist Party. Yeah, I can understand where he came from with that policy, but it's good to know that both parties, no matter who you vote for, are going to be strong on China, and I don't think anyone wants China to have dominance over the US, because China aren't exactly well known for their good business practices, let's just say that. But another interesting thing is the US support for NATO. Obviously, NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is the US, Canada, Britain, and a bunch of other countries. I'm not too sure, but they're the main ones, to be quite honest with you. I think France is in it as well. But yeah, basically that's like a military alliance. Membership in WHO, Trump really doesn't like WHO, and there's obviously been rumours about the US pulling out from that. And obviously the Paris Climate Agreement, which was pulled out in 2017, I want to say. I'm pretty sure that's when Trump announced that they were, going to leave the Paris Climate Agreement, because his reasoning for it was that in order to build up the US economy, he had to ditch the climate and, carbon emission stuff, which, well, it kind of worked because the US has had like a 4% economy growth since then, so Trump's obviously done something right in the terms of the economy. So yeah, obviously that's all very interesting. Foreign policy is obviously lacking because elections don't tend to focus on foreign policy at all. So we're going to move on now to the final topic of the video, where we're going to talk about Biden's mental state.
All men and women created by you know the thing. But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Like his strange hold on Defense Secretary Ash Carter's wife.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. I just have one thing to say. Hang on here. All right.
Honestly, though, some of those clips are just beautiful. Where he's talking about, the phrase from the Declaration of Independence, like, we hold these truths to be self-evident, and then he forgets what God is, basically. He forgets that whole part, and he's like, you know the thing? And then, like, honestly, this clip where he came on and played Despacito made me want to jump off a fucking cliff. Like, this man's not right in the head. I'm sorry, but, like, he's clearly too old. The man's 77. He's going fucking senile. Like, he's there trying to, be hit with the kids and that. But then, oh my fucking God. Like, he's so clearly going senile. Like, he says such stupid shit like the, you know the thing. And then also, we can't forget, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. We can't forget about that one. Like, obviously, I put in the clip of him being a little bit weird with that guy's wife, but that's literally just because I think he's going senile. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing half the time. He looks super confused. So is he really the right person to be president of the United States if he's just going to forget where he is half the time and potentially cause a nuclear war with those epic negotiation skills. But oh well, I think this segment really is just for a bit of comic relief at the end. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it either way. So that's going to be it for today's video. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Within the next few days you should be seeing my Donald Trump video. Hopefully it should be either on Friday or Saturday. I'm not too sure. Depends how long I actually have to get the rest of it filmed. But if you did enjoy, please do like and subscribe. There should be some more videos coming out today as well. Actually, I'm not sure if you've already seen it. I'm not sure if this is going to be, my first video going out or my second, because I'm double uploading today. And there was something else I wanted to say as well, which was I've now changed my upload time, I should say. Jesus Christ, I'm starting to sound like Joe Biden. But I've now changed my upload time from midnight to 6 o'clock. Well, 6:15, I should say, because YouTube is still being stupid and hasn't fixed the issue from like weeks ago at this point. So make sure you guys turn on notifications so you never miss a single video. Obviously, I'll be seeing you guys in an hour or so, I'm pretty sure. And that's when the next video will be going up, which I'm not going to say what it is, just so you guys, have a little bit of a surprise. It should be relatively interesting, fingers crossed, because it is a very spooky video, let's just say that. But, other than that, this has been QuinntonTV, and I will see you in a few days with my Donald Trump video.